Welcome to the Culture of Writing podcast, where writers, editors, and content strategists from Salesforce talk about how we work together to improve our craft and make content better.
So I'm Cristina, and I work on the internal content strategy team. I run Confluence and internal content operations, so I'm kind of all over the place. But I have always been interested in AI, and when I was a senior in college, I actually wrote my whole thesis on AI, and back before ChatGPT existed. So I was teaching neural networks in a very lingo-less way, so to a very non-technical audience, which is not an easy thing to do. But, with this resurgence of AI, I don't want to call it a resurgence because I feel like it's always been creeping up, but not everyone's been aware. And now it's just really exploded and everyone is throwing AI everywhere. So that's kind of why I got involved. And I when I went into this, I didn't really know, I didn't have a plan. I just knew that it was a topic that I was interested in and I wanted to contribute in any way that I could. So I thought about, because everyone was doing topics around external documentation and writing externally for marketing, for sales, for these other non-technical areas. But for me as an internal writer, I think a lot about how developers read and understand things. Things are getting more technical, which means ChatGPT has a big opportunity to help us out with catching up with the technology, because sometimes our documentation doesn't catch up with the code, if that makes sense. So I dove into kind of two separate experiments. The first one, I actually plugged in code and I wanted to see if ChatGPT could explain it to me. Someone who, let's say, I've dabbled in code before, but I know a lot of internal writers haven't. And so I was trying to test whether if I just threw something in there, if it would just tell me what it did. Because that's what a lot of developers do when they communicate with us, is they just give us a chunk of code and say, hey, update this doc with this code, and they disappear for like 3 days because they're so busy. And so that just, we don't really know where to start. And I was looking for a place to start. So what I did was I actually went to our internal documentation in Falcon, in the core developer center, in different places to actually plug code out of context to see what it would give me back. And at first I was really impressed with the results. And I thought, this looks right. I don't doubt it. But then I cross-checked with someone on my team who used to be a developer, and Eric Vitaglio, thank you, shout out to Eric. And he pointed out that a lot of things were missing from those explanations. And that him, as someone who understood very well what the code meant, these explanations were not going to help a writer. And so what he said is you could spend, hours and hours and hours, or weeks or months, actually exploring and deep diving into this one idea, trying to figure out the best way to do it. I don't have that time, but through my research, I realized, it could be possible. It would just take way too long. And right now, where we are is it is still faster to wait for a developer to respond to you than it is to go to ChatGPT. So we still very much need human in the loop in that case.
That's fascinating. Question for you is, in what way were the explanations inadequate? Just not in specific terms, but kind of in general terms.
So it just missed calling out certain test packages. It missed calling out how works and logs resulted in later analysis. It didn't describe certain things that were mentioned straight in the code. And so it would skip a lot of pieces. It would leave too many gaps, and it would have slight hallucinations that were really convincing. And so I think it's interesting because we see ChatGPT as this all-encompassing tool. It's really not that smart yet, is my conclusion for experiment number one.
all learnings are on the table, right? We just want to look at this truthfully, and we're all accepting this is where we are now. So this is fantastic. Thank you.
Well, it was interesting because I was speaking to, because I'm now on the Gen AI team for internal content, and I'm working on the Gen AI Center, the Einstein AI, Einstein GPT, Einstein AI Center on Confluence. And someone I was working with on my team said this morning, we need to put out a document for what use cases AI shouldn't be used for. Because a lot of people think that you can just throw ChatGPT onto everything, and you can't. We're not there yet. You know, it's very powerful, and maybe with an insane level of investment, we could get there, but what's your return? So I think having those considerations when you go into it is really important.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. So in this case, the investment to kind of clean up and sanity check and make sure it's not hallucinating or getting things wrong is you're saying is way less efficient than just waiting for the developer
Yes. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I just personally wouldn't have the time. And I don't think a lot of our writers do at the moment. Now, give it a couple versions for ChatGPT and maybe it'll just come along. So
Yep,
there are
totally.
other engineers working really hard to do that. So I think it's possible to revisit this in a few months, maybe a year. But right now, having a developer respond to you promptly is going to be a lot easier over time.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that's a great experiment. Thank you so much for sharing the results.
I do have a second experiment that I
Awesome.
think actually did show the value of GPT a little more currently. So I'm going to share my screen so I can kind of show you what I'm talking about. We're going to start here with the Lightning Web components on developer.salesforce.com. These docs are full of explanations about different Aura components. So we have click to dial, we have dial list box, etc., etc. So what I did was I actually took, for example, the breadcrumb, and I took this description, this whole description, and put it into ChatGPT. Or I actually just took the code here. And I said,
Wait,
make this.
I'm sorry. Just quick question. You took the whole page or you just took the code or just the text or both?
I just took this section. So I just took part of the code and I put it into the prompts. And I just said, make the following more descriptive. Actually, now that I'm seeing it, I did add a little bit of context for ChatGPT. So it wasn't just the code, it was a couple sentences before and one after. And I asked to make it more descriptive. And I got a more descriptive response. And so the descriptive response was pretty wordy, is what I noticed, but it did have a unique thing catch in the first prompt or in the first response that wasn't in the documentation. So this part right here, where it says each breadcrumb is not only informative, but also interactive, serving as a clickable link and things and visually indicating the hierarchical relationship. And this component inherits, I think it had something where here, enhances user navigation on a web page. So it has a little bit more of the why. Whereas in this document, it tells you the how, it tells you the what, but it doesn't tell you the why. Why are you having a lightning breadcrumb on this page? Why is it important to have UI, this particular UI element on this page? And I thought that was unique, you know, maybe it's just this page, but then I tried it on another page. I tried it on the button icon. So when I put this into ChatGPT, it did the same thing. It gave me the why, a visually appealing interactive element. With just a single click, this component executes a specific action. Well, it adds functionality to your application. And then it gave more examples. You can create a sleek, minimalistic icon button by using a bare variant. And then I think in the bottom, and it is still a little wordy, so it's not perfect. And I think it still needs an edit, but it did list a similar pattern at the top. And then I tried it again with the lightning alert. I just stopped at the code and added the first couple paragraphs. And then this is a big one. Empowers you to effortlessly create an attention-grabbing alert model with your component. You can effectively convey a state that impacts the entire system. This is a little poetic, transcending the boundaries of a mere feature or a page. And of course, it would still need someone to go in and edit. But all of those pages were missing the why. It's the same pattern. So, is it super important? I think it's a little important. Is it worth noting? Yes. Do I think using this in all of your documents to kind of track a pattern is useful and effective? Not necessarily. But I think when we're using templates across many, customer facing documents or something really high stakes or even outdated content that you just want to clean up, I think it's worth putting our templates and examples of our templates into ChatGPT to see if it misses anything. Make it more descriptive, elaborate a little more, make it more human-centric. We can start changing these questions to start finding the gaps and then improving our documentation.
This is awesome. Because it's also useful in finding the why customer-facing documentation and across a whole bunch of areas, and to see you focus on the internal. This is fantastic. So
I think this is internal. I'm not totally sure that this is internal. This might be just developer documentation, but it is only using the Einstein GPT. So I didn't use the external GPT. And I'm sure that after working on a lot of internal document, it's likely that it's also a pattern in internal, but I guess that's for the next experiment to find out. That's my hypothesis.
And internal or developer facing, meaning it's not help, it's not admin facing, and not that, what help in training. So it's really great to get that perspective. So thank you so much.
Sure. I know my thoughts were a little scattered. I just think there's a lot to uncover with this research. And I think when people are going and exploring with ChatGPT, it's important to know that it's a long road. You can't just plug in 5 or 6 documents and come up with something extraordinary. You have to be doing this over and over across multiple different versions of Einstein. There's 3.5, there's 4 point whatever, and it's going to keep increasing. You got to know if this is internal. How does it compare? Because I know different ChatGPTs in different websites externally have different results. Yeah, because they're trained differently. So if you are going to go and improve ChatGPT, you can do that. Now, this is just maybe one small use case you can use for the documentation. But do you have any questions?
No, I think what's so fascinating to me is the things across kind of disciplines that it's kind of consistently good at. And there's a lot of things that we think it probably will be good at in the future, but not now. And one of it, you just alluded to it, we talked about it yesterday at the webinar, is there is just no push button, get finished doc set, or push button, get finished, No. That's the dream. It's not like, when you do an email to a prospect, right? You push button, you get an email to a prospect. I mean, that's where they're focused on, and rightly so, because it's a huge market. But in our more specialized areas, it definitely needs a Cristina. It definitely needs people to make sure it's right and to double check it.
Well, what's interesting is that people don't ChatGPT is both an extraordinary and a simple thing. It's just a ton of data across many different sources. You put bad things in, you're going to get bad things out. And if you're not constantly improving the model, it's going to try to improve itself and it's going to fail. So that's my opinion.
No, look, these insights are amazing. And as far as your thoughts, one of the reasons we want to record this is that when you it's like a podcast, right? When you record it, people talk kind of from the heart and they're not like reading something. It's just, you explain it beautifully. So, yeah, nobody can explain it better, what you did and how you did it and what you found out. It's fantastic.
I don't know if I found out any like crazy discoveries here, but if it alludes to anybody, if anyone gets anything out of the experiments that I just tried, you can't just slap GPT everywhere.
No. And the goal of this readout, which is why it's a focus, is we just want to put out, this is what you can do now, right? In 3 months' time, it'll probably be different. In fact, we're certain, but these are things you can look at now. And if they make your job easier and faster, great. If they don't, like, if they've got too many red flags right now, then don't go down that avenue, perhaps, right? And wait and see. So we're just helping people that haven't really dipped their toe in the water yet, or who haven't had the time, So you taking your time to do this is amazing. So it's much appreciated. You're going to help a lot of writers.
I hope so. If it contributes anything at all, I feel like I'll be happy. And you're doing such good stuff, Sam. I mean, you're leading the cause. The head honcho.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, look, I can't thank you enough for your time. You are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. Have a nice week. Talk to you later.
You too.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay, so here's just a summary of what I found from my experimentation. I experimented with some existing help topics, and then I also got it to try to help me rewrite part of a release note after the fact. But basically, I found that both ChatGPT and Einstein GPT were useful for summarizing information that you give it. If you have an existing draft and you want to reduce it to a certain number of sentences or characters, it can help with that. Adjusting the tone, although sometimes it takes quite a few tries to get that right. I have some comical examples of things that came up with in there. Also, just doing research, understanding some concepts that already exist outside of Salesforce. It's great for understanding the customer benefits when you're trying to write a short description. Very helpful for just getting past writer's block. If you're stuck with something, you want to find a new way to, rewrite it or whatnot. It can come up with a lot of ideas to get you going. And then the main challenge for me is the answers can be so well written and so believable that if it's outside your feature area, you just need to be careful and make sure everything's correct. And then I used one example in here. Okay, so here's a release note, and this original version is up until right before the release. This was the approved version that was going to go. And then at the last minute, it came up that we may not want to state faster page load times because there were some technical situations where that might not always be the case, and we didn't really have the data to back it up. So it was great feedback that we might want to take that part out. And so I was kind of struggling with other benefits, for a good opening statement of the benefits to the customer. So what I ended up publishing in 244 was give your users a personalized experience. But I always kind of felt in the back of my mind, there's probably a better way to write this. And so after the fact, I ran it through Chat GPT and Einstein GPT to see what they would come up with. So the first attempt from Chat GPT wasn't really much of an improvement. It just basically said, enhance the user experience. And so that wasn't quite what I was looking for. I included this version in here because I thought it was pretty funny. I asked at one point for it to rewrite something in a fun and casual tone. And so it said things like personalized makeover. It's all about rocking that optimized performance, keeping your peeps happy. So obviously I couldn't use this verbatim. So that's another thing. It can take a few tries to get it just right. So in this case, our own product came up with some more usable information. It didn't stick to my request to keep it to just a few sentences, but this is how it can be really helpful. It won't write a release note, just immediately the first time in a usable format, but this was good for some other phrasing, like seamless and optimized browsing experience. Websites are responsive and adapt, just little pieces of information that I could use. Obviously I did the release note before this was available, but this is the type of thing that I find it useful for.
All right, sorry to interrupt. Just a question. So you're basically saying here, you ran it through what we're calling Einstein GPT right now, which is our internal large language model AI engine, and you get let's say 3 or 4 responses, and then you're kind of pulling what's best out of each of those and making it and putting it together yourself. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And so far I've experimented with it a bunch, and I've never really gotten a first answer that was just perfect. But so I don't find it helpful for, at this time anyway, completely writing something perfectly right from the start. But for those times when you're writing and you get a little bit stuck, like, I know how this works, but I can't quite think of, a way to summarize it, or I can't think of an opening statement that really emphasizes the customer benefit. So yeah, I found it mostly helpful for just getting the ideas going.
I think you're the first one that got peeps out of the end. I think that's awesome. It's funny, the themes that are coming up as people share their experiences, and I think what we're seeing, which is so fantastic that you're sharing this, is what we're seeing is there's some pretty consistent themes that go across, especially in the casual, overly familiar, overly friendly department, which I think is hilarious.
Exactly. At one point I asked it to write it at the 8th grade level, and then it came back with Salesforce is like a superhero in the cloud, and talked about how we can help our customer friends. And so, yeah, it requires some fine tuning to get it just right, but it can be helpful if it's not, if a fun tone isn't what comes naturally to you, then it can, get the ideas flowing, but yeah, it has to be reined in a little bit. So, yeah.
But it can get you, like you say, kind of over that first draft hump, or over, like, we all face it. Like when I'm like, I have a project today and I'm thinking, oh, holy cow, where do I start? And it's kind of a help for that, is I believe what you're saying.
Exactly. Definitely. Yeah, I would say that. And then just sometimes, especially something that's already out there in the world outside of Salesforce. For example, responsive layouts was this release note that I was working on. You can say, give me the top 10 benefits of using a responsive layout, and it will very quickly just list out, how it helps the customer. So that can be helpful too.
Awesome. Any other notes or any other things that struck you?
Yeah, like here was an example where I said, I was having a hard time getting just the right tone. I think that was after I asked about the 8th grade level. And then I said, take this paragraph and make it sound somewhere between marketing writing and technical writing. And so that had some, that was pretty good. And then I said, this sounds too stuffy, try again. And so I think this was the final version that ended up kind of working out. So it takes some trial and error. And I mean, that's the nice thing about using AI. Instead of talking to another human, you can just ask over and over and over, try again. It'll keep just generating different drafts till you can find something usable.
Yeah, like I said, the findings have a remarkable consistency, which I think is just kind of leveling out that this is kind of where we are with AI, right? It's going to change, but where we are right now, it's remarkably consistent what people are finding. So this is awesome, Scarlet. Thank you so much.
Sure. That sounds good. And if there's anything, I do tend to be a little rambly. Is there anything you want me to say over again without all the chatter or the ums and uhs? And
you're not rambly at all.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Sorry to correct you, but yeah, you're fine. No, this is just wonderful. I think the whole reason we wanted people to say it in your own words is that way people can hear it from you who did it from the heart. I did this, I touched this, I made this happen. And then they'll know that they can maybe reach out to you if they have any questions or want a sanity check. I think there's a lot of apprehension and unsettling, it's an unsettling thing thinking about it, and having people like you go in and say, okay, well, look, I'm just going to try it. This is where it is right now. I mean, he's clearly not positioned to take over any tech writing jobs at this point. And I don't know how long that's going to be. So right now, I think with the things that it can do well to help, yeah, you're just kind of, you're like with a torch in the cave, kind of lighting the way for people that may be a little apprehensive about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I would think we could put all of our styles and standards into the system, and eventually it'll be a lot.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Totally. We're just at the very beginning, of this thing. So, but anyway, cannot thank you enough. I know this is extra. Just can't thank you enough for helping, because you're going to help a lot of writers.
Thank you very much. And thank you for organizing this. This was so much fun to work on.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad. It has been fun. I think it has been fun too. All right. Well, you have a good rest of your day, and thanks again.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Take care, Scarlet.
Thanks. Bye.